So this is what I want to talk to you about today, is learning how to pivot. All right, so how do you pivot? What does it mean to pivot? What about all your experience and training? What happens to it? Have to start at square one? All great questions. So there are 4 considerations that I want to talk to you all about when searching for an alternative career path. The first are transferable skills. So you may feel like pivoting will require you to do something completely different that you've never done before and don't have the necessary skills or training to perform the role. But what if I told you that's not true? When you are considering what your next career will be, think about your transferable skills. What skills, education, experience, leadership do you have that can transfer to your profession of choice? When you apply for jobs, read the job posting beyond the qualifications. Look to see what the company culture is like. What are the behavioral skills that can transfer over to the profession of choice? Read between the lines, as I like to call it. When you apply for jobs, understand that technical skills can be taught, but the intangibles like communication and stakeholder management, leadership skills, engagement with a team, those cannot be taught. You either have it or you don't. You're either fit or you're not, right? So before you go to an interview, what I'd like to ask you is think about what are these transferable skills that you have from your profession and how can it add value to the role? The next topic I'd like to discuss is the why. Why are you looking to pivot? As a newcomer, some of you may have or may be currently experiencing the harsh reality that practicing in your field of profession is not easy. Your profession requires additional training to practice in Canada, or you are being told that you don't have quote-unquote Canadian experience. You are highly trained and educated, yet you are not able to practice in the same professional level that you were in your home country. Having done work with Eric, with EFCN, and with other community groups, I can see and I can understand how frustrating and demotivating this can be, especially coming to a new country. But being able to articulate the why is very important. But what is most important is how you articulate the why. When you are asked by a recruiter or a hiring leader, why are you interested in this role? Or, I can see this position isn't aligned with your career and experience. You have to be able to articulate why this position you are applying for and this career path is the one for you. Thinking about what is meaningful to you in this job or company. Research the company values, look at the community engagement, look at the overall approach to culture. These are those intangible pieces that is going to be able to articulate to the recruiter and the hiring leader why you are the choice for this role and why this career of choice is important to you. Look at the content of the role and speak to what about the position will challenge you. Where do you have gaps? It's always important to be self-aware to say, yeah, I understand maybe I don't have skills X, Y, Z, but here's what I do bring to the table. And leverage your experience and skills and feed your passion for the work. So what is it about this job that is going to get you up in the morning? Now, I do want to acknowledge that not every job is going to feed your passion. It's not going to speak to your heart. It's not going to fill your bucket. But there should be elements of a job that excite you and, like I said, make you want to get out of bed in the morning. So what are they? Be able to articulate them to the hiring leader, to the recruiter you're speaking. The next category I want to talk about is a value-add proposition. Who knows what a value-add proposition is? Just shout it out. Well, luckily, I'm going to tell you. So many of you have gone through the interview process here in Canada, And perhaps it is different than what you have previously experienced. Being asked about what you will bring to the table and to the job is actually quite common. Tell me, what value will you add to this position? How can your skills and experience add value to this position? Tell me about your accomplishments. Tell me about your strengths, although I hate that question, but it's asked. What are your areas of development? What are your weaknesses? It can be really uncomfortable. And when you were asked to talk about yourself and demonstrate the value you bring to the role, I personally also find it very hard to speak about accomplishments openly, to think about why I am the best candidate for this role. But it is an important question that you need to be able to answer. So what is your value add proposition? I would like you all to give some thought of what you can add to a role that you want to apply for, or to a career that you want to pivot to. Perhaps it's your superhuman ability to relationship build. Perhaps you have a high technical acumen and can articulate it in a way that people like me, who are not subject matter experts in the field, can understand, which is a huge asset. Perhaps you have the skill set or exposure to a system that the job requires and can be a quick study. Give it some thought. Your value add proposition is that 1, 2, 3 skills that you bring in spades. That you know that maybe you don't know anything else about the job, but what you do know is that value you bring it, and you bring it all the time and every day and effortlessly. That's what your value proposition is. Some may call it an elevator pitch. I don't know if anyone has heard that as well. But being able to articulate that is incredibly important. Why should I hire you? That's what you need to be able to answer. Part of the value add proposition that I want to be able to talk to you about today is a personal brand. So I'll tell you a really quick story first. So when I was interviewing for my first position with Canadian Western Bank, I've been there for 4.5 years, and had various roles within that time. Well, my first role, I met with the VP of HR, which I was already nervous about because I am terrible at interviews, terrible at them. The first question she asked me, so she sat me down in her office and she said, I'm going to ask you some questions and we're just going to have a conversation. The first question she asked me is, what is your personal brand? I completely froze. I had no answer. And the VP of HR, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, great, I'm definitely not getting this job. I look like a complete fool. I can't even answer the question about a personal brand. She must have seen the absolute blank look on my face and the fear. And she said to me, you know what? Forget the questions, let's just talk. I responded to her to say, no one has ever asked me that question before, and I've never really given it any thought. I come in, I do my job, try to do it well, and then I leave. And then I come back, and I do it all over again. So, what is your personal brand? A personal brand is what you are known for. The question I'd like to pose to you to think about is, what do you think people say about you when you're not in the room? If you are currently employed, ask your leader, ask your peers. If I wasn't in the room, what would you say about me? Positive and constructive. It's good to understand this. It is an uncomfortable conversation, and I say that from experience, but it is important to know not just what you do, it's how you are perceived. Because unfortunately, in a lot of cases, perception is reality, and you need to understand what that reality is. Think about when you're building your personal brand, what do you pride yourself on as a professional? What feedback have you received on your work? These types of questions and more will help contribute to building your personal brand. So before you go into that interview, think about what this is and how to concisely articulate it. So I gave lots of thought after that interview, and it took me a really long time. And mine is that I am a relationship builder and I am a talent steward. That's what I do, and I do it really well. I do everything else okay, good enough. but that's what I do really well. That's my value proposition, and that is my personal brand. Lastly, I want to talk about finding your advocate. Once you have landed yourself in a role, find your advocate. Work hard, demonstrate your ability, find a mentor, and eventually that mentor will lead to an advocate and a sponsor. These are people that will stand behind your work and go to bat for you as you look to grow and develop your career. I want to be clear, this is not a quick step. You can't just go up to someone and say, can you be a sponsor? Will you be my advocate? It doesn't quite work that way. But it is something that you earn over time. So much like building a network, it takes relationship building, demonstrating hard work, being in alignment and a champion for your company culture and values, and actively showing that you're willing to grow and develop. That means taking feedback and taking it well and learning from it and knowing that it's not coming from a place of personal criticism, it's coming from a place of, I believe in you, you can do better, you can do more. Having an advocate and a sponsor have changed my entire trajectory of my career at CWB for the better. They are incredibly powerful and can speak objectively to your ability to perform the role as a holistic professional. I would also encourage you to participate in the Connector and Mentorship programs with Eric, and they will help build your personal network or your professional network. They will help start that step to building a relationship with a mentor. Advocates can also be grown externally to your organization that you work for, and leveraging programs like Eric is very valuable. My last piece of advice, and above all, have patience. Don't lose your motivation. You will get there, and practice your pivot. Thank you all so much for having me here today.